In our last video, we rebuilt the front control arms for the 91 Chevy shop truck. And the prior video, I talked about three main questions that come up about LS swaps. In one of those, I spoke about having the right tools. Well, I quickly figured out, doing the control arms, that I can clean them up, but I can do them a whole lot faster, a different way. So we're taking a step to the side for just a moment, and we've got a blast cabinet I just purchased, and we're going to, I'm not going to go through the whole process of unpacking and showing you all the styrofoam and the paper and how this and that goes together. That's pretty obvious. The instructions are included. You can figure it out. There's plenty of videos that show how to do that. I'm going to be making some modifications to it to make it work better. So I'll come back in just a minute. We'll have this taken apart, and we'll start looking at it and put it together. And when we're done, we'll then move forward with doing the snippet of film I showed you about the spindles and rotors and calipers, and we'll start moving forward on the truck. This looks to be exactly like the Harbor Freight blast cabinet. It's not. I did not buy it from Harbor Freight, but looking at it, I've seen these before, and it looks exactly like it. Okay, one of the first modifications. This is looking at the back of the unit on the inside, and you can see here's the. They have it set up so that this, I believe, is the air intake, and it's open here, and it's open on this other end as well towards the top. And we're going to reverse it and make this where we're going to vacuum the dust out. However, I don't want it coming out here because it's open on both ends. We want to direct the airflow through the bottom. So I'm going to close this off, little sheet metal, and trim it out and put a little angle to it so that any dust in the cabinet would slide off and not be trapped on a flat ledge right there. So we're going to cover this up. Okay, that's just a little piece of galvanized metal I found in my garage. Just cutting pieces out of it, cut it and formed it to that. That'll close that off and give it an angle so that the dust won't settle on top, but it'll drift down into the bottom. Another slight modification I'm going to make is the inside of the cabinet is painted red, which is pretty, but it doesn't reflect the light near as well as white. So I'm going to use white contact paper, it's vinyl, to line the inside of this to reflect the light better so we can see more of what's going on, and we don't have to worry about scratching and prepping and painting and all that, and the paint would get blown off with the dust anyway. So let's give this a shot. And here's the back. Here's the hopper put together. I lined the insides, even though it has a little padding in there. I lined it with a little red RTV gasket maker, just to make sure there's a good seal and the color doesn't pop out like black or any other weird color. Just to make sure everything is airtight as possible to prevent a whole lot of dust from getting out. Okay, these are the components for my metering valve. I've seen a lot of them that the modifications where they use an aluminum valve, or they have a cast iron pipe and such, and that'll work fine. It also costs more. PVC is pretty cheap. I've got the internal diameter is 1 inch. So here's 2 T's, and I get the pipe so I can cut it, and I'll to attach all the components. The 2 T's, this goes on the bottom, and this screws on, so that'll be my drain. This fitting slides in here, and it has a 3/4 inch internal thread, and it's going to meet my valve, my port here. Now I'll attach my hose for the media to go through. The top, it's internally threaded for 1/2 inch, and that's what this will. This valve will be control my airflow. I've already cut a hole in my plate. I didn't have a drill bit quite that big, so I had to drill smaller holes and until I could just push it out and then use a grinder and just kind of grind that smooth. It'll fit through, the pipe will fit through there probably 1/2 inch. I've got 2 extra caps here. My purpose for these were to cut the end of it off, the cap portion of it off, and use this portion of it to act as a spacer on top of the T to the bottom of the plate, and then a little bit above the plate to make it at least level with the bottom foam that's in this lid. Okay, here's the valve put together. Pretty compact. This fitting right here is a 3/4 inch by 5/8, so that ought to be a nice size. The end of that is pretty hard to see in the dark here, but it's in the shadows. But that's a pretty good size hole. Okay, to begin with, there's a number of things I've done, but we're just going to start at one point and work our way around. On the side, left-hand side, typically this would be where you would hook up your vacuum to suck the dust out. And I noticed a lot of guys are running it on the back, and it seemed to make more sense drawing the air across. And there's just more room in the back to put the vacuum and such. So with this, there was already an existing hole here. I put the air intake here instead of in the back. Their electrical outlet here I installed with a nice switch. The little switch that they provide is pretty small, and there's just a small lamp that mounts inside to the back of the wall, which I just thought it's a bad idea. You've got the item in front of you you're trying to clean, and yet the light is shining from the back. So I'll show you the inside in just a minute. But we've got a light switch right here, and just cord down to any outlet. This handle is something I took off of a piece of equipment at my last job that was going to be salvaged, and I thought I might be able to use it, and sure enough, it will work out nicely. It's made of aluminum, heavy duty, the way to really wheel the cabinet around because it is mobile. Moving on down, you use just a piece of angle iron, and actually this piece of steel right here is an old edger blade. I just cleaned everything up, welded it, painted it black. I've got an air pressure regulator with a water trap, an air filter and water trap. This is an actual water trap that has a desiccant in it to get the moisture out of the system as much as possible. And this is an oil separator, so if there's any oil in the system. Over here, there's 2 lines running off. This one I put a one-way valve. Or a little ball valve, I should say, and it goes up to the back, and I've got a hook I made and put on the back, and this is for an air gun for cleaning the inside when I change media, or if the outside's all dusty and dirty. It just hangs there, but it's got a 5-foot hose, so it'll go all the way to the other, reach to the other side to get inside. Then the other goes down to a foot pedal. And pay no attention to this right here. I had a leak and I had to figure out something to plug it, and that works, but I'm going to remove this and just put a cap on the end of this so that the air doesn't leak out. That way keeps you from getting hand cramps from pressing a trigger all day long. The metering valve. Now, a lot of guys have made theirs out of cast iron pipe, plumbing pipe, or they buy a special one. And if you make it yourself with the plumbing pipe, it runs, you're going to spend about $30. If you buy one of the specially made ones, they're going to run anywhere from $50 to $75 or more. I made this one out of 1-inch internal diameter PVC, and get down here a little better. I can unscrew this cap to drain out the media. There's a hole in the bottom of the little flap here, the little door that opens up to change out the media. Here I've got a ball valve to control my air intake where it's fully closed or open, and then a brass fitting here. And I spent about $20 for all this, much cheaper. The holes for the hoses to enter the cabinet, I drilled them in the front and got a couple of grommets for the hoses to go through to keep the dust and stuff out of the shop as much as possible, and just plugged the hole on the side, taped it up. All the bolts I either put in backwards, so that the heads were on the inside, for example, these, so that the material inside wouldn't have much surface area to land on. And also I'll show you inside what we did. The glass that goes on the top, the bolts, again, they come in from the bottom side. Some guys use little nuts they can take off and on to replace the screen that covers the glass to protect it. That screen, mine literally has a screen. Made a frame. Let me turn this light here. Looking at the inside, there's a single LED light. It is on a little bracket I made over there, and it's got a magnet on the back of it, so it is positional within the cabinet. The air intake has a tray that mounts over it so that it directs the air directly through the bottom to bring it across the tray, the bottom of the cabinet, instead of just floating around. All the bolts inside have been covered with air conditioning tape. It's kind of a silver foil tape so that there are no flat surfaces. So there you go. No flat surfaces for the media to land on. In the bottom, I haven't seen anybody else do this. In the bottom, to make it easier and faster for the media to be recycled, I put a funnel down in the bottom and use the air conditioning tape to taper it up so that the material will drop faster straight down into the metering valve rather than collecting all along that little rectangular trap door. I can see that better there. Here, I modified the grate a little bit so the hoses could come through. A lot of guys are cutting down the grate and dropping it lower so that they can put taller items in. I decided not to do that. If it's a tall item, I can turn it sideways. I don't want to do anything that would affect the rigidity of this frame, because once you do that, it's not going to be that sturdy. You may have something tall, but if it's got any weight to it, then that could be awkward inside. I've covered the complete inside with white contact paper so it would reflect the light much better. Here you can get a better shot of the screen. There you go. You can see the screen that protects the glass. And hopefully that will eliminate the need to have to constantly remove the glass and change the little plastic film out that should protect it. The door, again, there's holes in it and a little ledge here. It's got contact paper. All the seams when it was built, top, bottom, sides, everywhere, I used red RTV caulk to seal it. The top, literally, this is not normally how you would mount it. I mounted it from the top down. My original intent was that at some point in the future, I might put hinges on it so the top would raise and lower. See, moving around to this side. In the back, here's where my vacuum attaches. This has got a door that controls the airflow. It's all the way open, all the way shut. Obviously need it open. This plastic tubing is actually, got that off Amazon for like $5. It's a tubing that you'd use like for a cold air intake. And it comes down to a Chinese-made cyclone dust collector, and then there's a Harbor Freight, genuine Harbor Freight bucket here at the bottom. Attached a hook on the side so that the bucket can be removed and placed in different place when storing, so that it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. It's mobile. Notice I made the cart. It's a little bigger than the actual frame, and it's got a little frame around it. It's got 4 bolts on two on each side that hold the legs in place, and it's got some decent casters that I already had. So all in all, it should work really well. But the only way we can find out is to try it out. Here's my shop vac. I've got hooked up to it. Got my compressor in the back there. It's hooked up. So let's try it out on a few pieces and see how these modifications really work. Here's the media we're going to use. It's Clean Bite. It's a medium grit, 50-pound bag. I got this at Northern Tool for $8.99 on sale. Here are the items we're going to play with today. Got this old pulley. Here's a shackle off a back of a Chevy truck, and a hook off the front of a Tahoe. So let's clean these up, and this is kind of the before, and let's see what they look like afterwards. Okay, and here are the parts. Again, this is the second shackle, so that you can get an idea of what the first one looked like. Did a nice job on that. I'm very pleased. It really took that old rust off and give it a nice surface, so you can just throw a little light coat of primer and paint on that and it'll look good. There's that pulley. And this hook has got like a coating on it, but it has it cleaned the bolts up good and took it down to the metal. You can read the numbers on it. So anyway, glad we did it. It's going to be a good investment. I don't have that much in the cabinet itself. Had to do a little tweaking with the air inlet down here. You want this just barely open. If it's open too much, it just won't draw through the tube. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. This was kind of a diversion from the actual project, but I'm glad we did it. It's going to make moving forward nicer. At the end of that last video, we showed a snippet of some spindles, and that's what we're going to get into next. So in the next video, I'm going to show you why we got them. Okay, thanks for watching.